In this video, we're going to walk through some of the online test import features that have been updated for the spring 2022 SkillsCMS platform. Most of the functionality around online test importing and management works exactly like it did last year. So if you've used the system in the past, that functionality should be exactly like it was in the past. The core concepts are demonstrated in this YouTube video that I'll have a link to in this video. This has a lot more detail than this quick update we're going to do here now. So you'll want to review, if you haven't used this before, you'll want to review this other video to understand sort of how the process works from end to end. The main difference for 2022 is that there's a new file format from the national office for their national online test platform. It used to be called Championships Hub. That is a new file format that you'll get in the Excel files. Had a similar file format change and some enhanced error processing around the professional development test, or the PDT test. So there's some new features there that we want to talk through as well. That PDT test is these are all a little bit tricky because the students, give us email addresses, and a lot of this matching works on email address, and then students decide they want to use a different email address to take the test, so things don't match. So we're struggling to get that 100% perfect. I think so far we've been getting a 90-95% match rate on students, changing their email address to the last minute, and then so there's a little bit of manual cleanup that'll have to be done to make the whole thing really work. But let's look first at the online test platform, not so much the PDT, but for any contest result. So let's say, for example, you have a diesel equipment test, and all of your students are going to, diesel equipment contestants are going to take this online test using the national system, and then you'll end up with an export, an Excel file that will look like this. And some of the key things you want to keep in mind about how this works is that the column headings here at the top, there will be a blank row. Row 1 has this report heading in it. You just want to leave that. Leave that alone when you download this file. Don't mess with that first row. The second row, row 2, has the titles that are in the Excel file you get from the national system. Again, you don't want to mess with that. Just leave these two files alone. We've built this import mechanism smart enough to sort of ignore these first two rows and start importing on row 3. So obviously if you start deleting things, you say, I don't want that reports row, well, you're going to lose some data because we're going to start importing on row 3. So just download these files and use them exactly as they are. The key things about the import is the import will match by email address, so the email address column is critical. And in an attempt to try and make this more accurate, we also do a subsequent match on the member ID. In these Excel files, it's just called the ID column here. Column L is a member ID. And since 99% of your contestants should have been registered through the website and are members and have a member ID, we can also use this just in case someone's email address changes. So it's sort of a two-step process. We'll choose to import by matching email address, and the system will automatically, behind the scenes, match by member ID. So let's go take a look at how this works. When I switch over to SkillsCMS, I'm going to click on the Professional Test and Online Batch Entry screen here. And this will take me to a screen where I can choose what type of test I want to import. Again, this works just like it did last year. There's a couple of button changes here, and that's what we're going to walk through here. But in this particular case, I've got a test that I've loaded as the online test as opposed to a technical assessment. And the one I want to run is the diesel equipment one. So when I choose diesel equipment, now I can see, if you don't have all this stuff here, obviously you hit that load contestant button and it'll load all those students in there. But you only have to do that once. And once I've got them loaded, now I can see for diesel equipment, these are all the contestants that I have in this contest. And if I look back over at my Excel file, I have those same names and email addresses in my Excel results. So one of the things you want to do is sort of keep track of as you download these files, kind of eyeball and make sure, A, I know which contest file I'm working on, diesel equipment, and the names. Yep, these look like the right names, are the names that matched my students over here. So then all I need to do is import them. Now this thing will default to importing match using email address, so that's fine. I'm going to leave it set there. And then I'm going to use this button called Import Championships Hub, or import the online test from the national file. The others, if you're using Class Marker or using a generic one, those are all the same as they were last year. Nothing has really changed there. The only difference is we've redesigned everything for the new online test vendor for the national office. So I click Import Championships Hub. It's going to ask me, hey, are you sure you're ready to import an Excel file of online test results for diesel equipment? Yep, I've already chosen diesel equipment, and that's how it knows what to say here, which file I'm going to import. I say yes, and it'll ask me, all right, where's your file? Mine is on my G drive, and the one I'm going to use is this one called Diesel Equipment Technology. That's my online test. The other one here, that's my actual scorecard we're going to import in a minute. So that's my online test. I'm going to open that guy up, and it tells me it has successfully imported 10 scores from Excel, of which 10 were successfully matched to contestants in Diesel, and that will be used as their online test score. Now, if it says something different here, if it says successfully imported 10 scores from Excel, of which 8 were successfully matched, that just means you have email address issues. Not a big deal, not the end of the world. It just means some kids changed their email or didn't have a member ID or whatever, and the system just couldn't match them up. That's okay. When we click OK here, we'll just need to be looking for those blank ones. Now, why do I have blank ones? I thought it said 10 out of 10. Well, notice I've got 12 contestants. So what that tells me is I may need to go back over to my Excel file and look, and when I checked, I found out, yep, I only had 10 students that took the test. So maybe a couple of these kids dropped out, maybe they're not competing, maybe they never bothered to take the online test, whatever. But I got the 10 from my file, and they all happened to match just fine. So I imported those, and it worked exactly as I needed it to. And if I find that this kid, Ryan, if he found that he did actually take the test, I can still go back in here later and type in a score for him. It's no big deal. But since I didn't get his score in the Excel file, no scores were automatically appended for that particular student or this other one down here. And that's really all there is to it. You just keep going through the process, grabbing each next file that you've got, importing them, grabbing each file, choose the next particular contest, hit the import button, load your file, and it'll give you the results and tell you in that little pop-up message how many of them were successfully loaded. You can go through and eyeball the ones that might not have been matched and either put in a score if they took it, or, sorry, this student didn't take the test. That means he's going to get a low score for not taking his online test. Now let me go check that Excel scorecard and see what happens when I import it. So when I open up my Excel scorecard that I get back from my judge, I will notice that I've got all the scores in there. Everything looks good. I kind of spot check a few things to make sure the tabs are all good. And of course I notice my Excel scorecard does not have a row for the online test because my online test was handled online. The judges don't need to type that stuff in. The whole point of this is that the SkillsCMS system is going to take these scores that were hand judged, hand calculated by judges, put into the scorecard, and it's going to merge that online test result with all these and have another skill area here. So this looks good. I verified it. That one's all what I want. Now I'm just going to go back to SkillsCMS and actually import that actual scorecard. So on the import scorecard screen, I hit import scorecard. It's going to ask me which contest I want. I'm going to choose on my G drive that Diesel Equipment Technology Secondary. And when I hit open, it's going to go process all that stuff. And then it tells me it appears there are 11 online and or professional test batch scores that were entered. Do I want to append them? Remember, I only matched 10 when I imported that thing, but I manually found one other score for one other kid and manually typed that in, so that's how I got to 11. Do I want to append them? Yes, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to append those, and now I've got the results. I can hit my score report and see who's going to win gold, silver, and bronze based on the fact that those particular students got the right scores and it calculated everything just the way I expect it to. All right, so let me switch back over to my PowerPoint deck here. So that's how the online test platform works. You import those results, leave the title rows on the top alone, make sure you choose the right contest, and everything should work fine. The professional development test platform is very similar. It's almost exactly the same file format that you get. And again, you want to leave the title row at the top alone, this reports row, row 1, leave it alone. Row 2 has the titles, leave that one alone. It's got the email addresses for your students, that's the primary matching mechanism, and then of course over in column L is the member ID, which is used as a secondary matching mechanism. The difference being your professional test result will have every single student that took the test. Now again, a couple of things you may have to watch for here. Sometimes students, start the test and lose their connection or whatever, and they log out or their computer reboots or whatever. We've seen these files come with the same student multiple times because they started taking a test and couldn't finish. The way the system is designed to work, it's going to try and import their highest score. So if a kid starts to take the test and gets kicked out 2 minutes later and has a score of 3, and then he gets logged back in and takes it again and gets a score of 56, well, there'll be 2 rows for that student, and we're going to try and import the highest score. So we've got lots of error checking that is built in to try and resolve things like that, but it is not perfect. We've seen students mess up the email addresses. We've seen people log in with slightly different first and last names. We've seen all kinds of different things come through in these, and so we've tried to build a bunch of error checking into the import mechanism. You just got to keep an eye on it as you're using this thing and see what happens. So let's see if I can go take a look at importing that particular file in the SkillsCMS. Same basic process. I'm going to go to the professional test and online test batch entry screen. In this case, though, I'm not working with a technical assessment or an online test. I want to use the bottom option here for a professional development test. And when I choose that, similar concept, I need to hit load contestants. And that is going to load all the contestants for which I have added a professional development test. Now you may want to go back and look at that first video we alluded to in this about from 2021, where how do you get that professional development test item added. There's some features there that'll help you do that quickly if you need to. So I've got that added. Now I'm ready to match by email address, and I'm ready to import the Championships Hub. Again, if you're using a generic one or something else, all that's the same as it was last year. The only difference is now we have a more improved process for importing the new Championships Hub platform from the national office. So I click this button. It's going to ask if I want to import a set of professional test scores. Yep, that's exactly what I want to do. It'll ask me which file I have. Now I'm going to import this original one that I had and see what happens, because I think there's going to be some problems with it. And you'll soon notice one of the kinds of warnings that can come up from this thing. At least one of the scores seems to be duplicated based on email address. So I've got somebody in here who put the email address in wrong, or they added their name wrong, or something happened here that's going to cause me some grief, and it's not going to import this. And this report will pop up that you can print off and tells you exactly what's happening. In this case, I've had some student who somehow took the test twice with slightly different names, but the same exact email address. Somehow they just got through there twice. I don't know how that happened. I just know I've got a problem that I need to go clean up. So I'll take a pause here, and I'll go find that error, and I'll fix it. I'll delete one of the scores, or change the email, or fix the name so that it's correct. And then when I get back, I'll come and import it again. Okay, so now I've got a new version of my professional development test. This one I've renamed Fixed, where I just went in and found what the problem was with that one student and got it corrected. So now I should be able to load this. I'm going to go back to the SkillsCMS and do the same thing again. I'm matching by email address for my professional development test. I'm going to import. Yes, I'm ready to do it. Now this time I want to choose my fixed file that I've gone through and cleaned up a few things for. And when I import that one, it's going to tell me, hey, wait a minute, there's another potential problem. 39 scores in this import don't match on email address. That means the students took the test, put in an email address, but somehow they changed the email, or they gave us one email at the beginning and then logged in with a different email. These students took the test, but they're not going to get a score in CMS because it doesn't match by email address or by member ID. I can proceed, but the students are not going to get scored. Now when I click OK, it's going to pop up two things. One is this message asking me, what do I want to do? Do I want to continue and let these 39 scores not get counted, or do I want to go try and clean up the data and look at it? Well, this is showing me some of the issues that I can see where the matching member ID or the email address is wrong. This is just trying to point out some of the inconsistencies that we have. Now you may want to say, Nope, I don't want to do this. I want to go clean some stuff up. I want to look at all these details. I want to go compare my Excel file and match some of this data. But that can take a long, long time. And so I'm not going to mess with that in this case. I'm just going to go through and do it again. Pretend like I cleaned some stuff up. Import, yes. Pick my cleaned file that I fixed some things on. It tells me about the same 39. In this case, I'm going to say, you know what? I get it. Those 39 scores are not going to get counted. It is what it is. Now, when it finally finishes, I get another screen. I may want to screen print this or save it because this is telling me there were 1,643 professional test scores successfully matched. The original file included 2,000 rows. Now, when you match all that up, it resulted in 952 team and individual scores. Now, remember, team events calculate an average. You can see how these numbers get so strange looking. There were 2,000 rows in that Excel file, but I only ended up with 952 scores because, like in this case, all these team events for whatever content, these are all people on a team, and they only get one average score for their team. So it might have been, I don't know, maybe this was Teamworks, or maybe this was chapter business. I don't know what it was, but it could be that 7 people took this test, but on team number T from that particular group, they only get 1 score. And you see these numbers are like a weird percentile or a average, right? As you can be 80 plus 20 plus 60 plus 30, whatever, you end up average of 43.333. So that's how these numbers look a little bit odd. Don't worry, this is not supposed to match. You'll never run this and see all 3 of these numbers match because of that team thing and some of the ones that don't match. So the idea is this is where we're looking for the 90%, right? Like I scroll through here and say, whoop, why did this kid not get a professional development test? Well, I go look in the Excel file. Maybe he never took the PDT. Neither did this kid. But if I keep looking down through here, I may realize, oh, shoot, this kid did actually take the test. I found Emma's name in there. She called me or texted and said I took it, and she got a 78 points on it or 77 points on it. You can type the scores in directly for any that don't match. And you see as we're scrolling through here, that's why I mentioned earlier we get 90, 95% hit rate because we match a lot of the time. But it will never be perfect because here's an example where the kid didn't give us an email, so we'd have no way to match them up. So that's how that process works. And then, of course, when you do the mass import of Excel scorecards, it will merge these professional development tests in and count them along with their original results. All right, so let me bounce back over to Excel and kind of give you a quick summary. I think it's best if you keep track of those Excel files by using some meaningful file names. You know, if you're downloading these from the Championships Hub or the National Online Test Platform, you may get dozens or potentially hundreds of Excel files. You'll need to name those appropriately. I would create a subfolder and move those completed files into a subfolder, maybe create a subfolder called completed online tests. And as you import them, move them into that subfolder so you keep track of which ones have been done and which ones have not. Don't mess with those title rows on top. Remember, each one of these needs to have those 2 rows on the top. Every one of these files will look exactly like this one, where there's that report heading row in 1 and the titles of the columns in row 2. You don't want to mess with any of those. Just leave them as they are. And then finally, as you import each file, review those results on the import screen. Look for holes. If there's a student that didn't get a score, well, that number, that column will be blank for that particular student. You can look through there and see if they took the test. Maybe you manually put the test in. If you can't find it, if the student just didn't take it or messed up his email so badly you have no way to know who it was, then there's just not going to be an online test score for that particular student. That's just how it is. So that gives you an idea how we've changed things for 2022. Hope it works out well for you. As always, if you have questions, you can email us at support@skillsusa-register.org. Thanks for watching.